Welcome back to What Would You Ask podcast. My next guest, it was a really cool episode. I watched it, 6 times like I usually do last night. Didn't want to miss anything. You'll remember this guy because he brought in rock bands. And when they said, what are rock bands? He's like, well, they're bands, wristbands with a rock on them. And then he goes into the deeper discussion, and I'll give a proper intro in a second, but you'll also remember him, and we're going to ask him how he figured this out, got that coup to bring in Robin Leach. I mean, come on. When I saw him walking down the thing with that Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous voice, that was the cool. That if you remember this episode because you remember Robin Leach, coming down the thing, and that must have cost him a pretty penny. Otherwise, it's his uncle. But either way, we're going to find out through Lee in a second. RockBands is the fashionable, that wrist accessory with the rock and roll kind of, big and bulky. And I'm proud. And, if you don't like it, go listen to somebody else. They're made of all sorts of materials. What are they? Python, crocodile, tree snake, calf skins, 40 different rocks or stones, I should say. They're probably not rocks. I don't know the difference between a rock and a stone though. So don't quote me. They come in a really cool case, which I thought it was like, the roadies kind of case. And then inside it has some kind of healing properties, I think. You know what I mean? I don't want to make any claims here, but we'll talk to Lee about that. I'm excited to welcome to the program Lee Dahlberg. Welcome to What Would You Ask podcast, Lee.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit more, first about the product. How did you come up with it? What was the inspiration?
Sure. I actually own an ad agency, a small ad agency down here in Miami. I'm in South Florida. I'm in Fort Lauderdale right now, but agency's in Miami with 2 good friends. And I was consulting for a jewelry company, and they actually made some things with stone, but they made women's products like earrings. And between you and me, what they made was ugly, but I'm not the guy. They're hiring me to help their advertisements. So I was just kind of coaxing them along. After the meeting, I drew on a napkin, which is just funny that it was on not even a real paper, the first sketch of what I thought a wristband could be. Like a cuff, a very thick leather with 1 stone on it. And I showed it to them afterwards, and I said, hey, could you help me make something like this? It's a rock on a band. And I said it out loud, and I said, oh, I'm going to call them rock bands. And I was joking. I literally had just drawn it. And the idea was a John Wayne movie. He had a big hunk of leather with a hunk of turquoise wrapped on it. And I always thought that was such like a hero image. Yeah. I used to watch it with my grandfather. That's cool. And so that's where it manifested from, just making a modern version of this heroes. And so they agreed to make a few for me. And this was the funny point. The reason I have a company is because I'm cheap. And now follow. They said, if you make 10, they're this much. Right. If you make 20, they're this much. But if you make 50, they're this much. And I thought to myself, what in the world am I going to do with 50 of them? And I thought, Christmas is coming. So maybe I'll just design my own gifts for the family. And that's quite frankly how it started, because of an ugly jewelry company and a cheap entrepreneur.
That's amazing. That is an amazing story. Tell us a little bit more about the stones and the bands themselves. Why so many different? It's cool as hell to think about. You could pick out, and I want a python. That's pretty darn cool. And then, am I off base with some kind of healing properties? I know there's a card inside. I remember seeing. Tell us about it.
So here's how I found out about all that. My background is marketing and advertising. So I like a name, a story, packaging. It just helps the whole flow of the concept. And that I'm very strong on that. My business partner is a genius, so I was taught by the best. And he's French and Japanese, which is an odd combination, but it gives him this like perfectionist of his Asian background, and then this sort of elegance of his French background. And so he has this amazing eye. And so I learned from him. And so the main thing was name. I actually got Rock Band, and I own the trademark, which is quite insane because you think it's quite a popular word, but I had to fight the video game company years back and all that, and I won. And then packaging. So my concept was that I would design a backstage equipment case like this from a rock concert and miniaturize it to fit around your rock band.
That's
and
cool.
then when I was studying the durability of the stones, like to just make sure you could knock them around, that's when I came into these, like a little science, a little folklore, a little spirituality about each stone. And I thought, as a marketing guy, what better than this product has a story? And then to find that I could make each one unique, because each one is unique with the healing properties of the stone. And then I even thought about everything, because the leather I use is consumed animal leather. So nothing I use was hunted for its hide. It was a meal. So I'm recycling. I'm an artist. I make art out of fallen metal and pieces of cars. So recycling is a big part of my life. I have a furniture company called You Son of a Bench, and I make furniture out of trash and art out of trash. So in a strange way, you're still not like, because I had friends that were vegan that still wore my jewelry when they wore no other leather, because they understood that it was done with conscience. So, and then I had a bunch of famous vegans like, what's her name, Pamela Anderson, and things like this, that were wearing my jewelry. Well, also, it didn't hurt that I was somehow friends with Tommy Lee and he was wearing it, and I went on tour with Motley Crue. But that's a different story.
Wow, that's awesome.
How it started, and then to me it was concept, name, packaging, and then, because as we'll find out, I was not quite the businessman. I was a great here and good with the celebrity end of it, but the rest, yeah, we'll find out.
So let's get to the tank. You get to the tank and you decide, how can I make a big impression or a big entrance? I don't know what it was, but you end up bringing Robin Leach. Tell us how that happened.
It's funny because you and I understand that. Some of the millennials don't know who he is.
Who he is.
So I have something funny like, have you seen MTV Cribs? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, oh, that's the bastardized version of
that's right.
show, which was called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. Imagine if MTV Cribs was classy, something like that. Can you imagine that was prime time for 17 years on ABC? I didn't even remember that. Yeah. So I know you're thinking, oh, wow, he paid a fortune. I met Robin at a charity event, and I don't know why, but we laughed so much all day long. Like, we kept each other entertained, because it wasn't like the most fun event in the world to be at, but we were both doing it for the right reasons. So I have no idea why, but we connected like good friends. So every time I went to Vegas, he's passed away now. He was such a nice guy. Every time I went to Vegas on business, we would go out to dinner, and whoever I was with, I wouldn't tell them, because it was just funny to see.
That's so cool.
I was like, hey, we're going with my buddy Robin. And I would say the same thing. He's going to bring two blondes. There'll be two blondes I've never met before, but they'll definitely be blonde. There'll be one on either side of him. And they're like, I wouldn't tell him who any more than that, just my buddy Robin. And then we get to a dinner, and Robin was so famous in Vegas because he was on the small commission that like voted on what could be done in Vegas. And I don't know how he got on that, but just a really nice guy. But sure enough, two blondes. You know, he would joke that they're his nieces. They were not. And it was always funny to see if it was friends or business or whatever, he would be so generous to them. And we would go to the nicest places, and everyone would really bend over for him, like backwards, to make sure he was happy. And then they'd assume I'm somebody because I was with him. I rode that wave for a long time. If you see any of the photos, I've been a clean cut guy my whole life, but I had a theory that nobody would buy a rock band from a clean cut guy. So I just let my hair grow for like 5 years. I didn't cut my hair. And then I would go to celebrity events, and at the door, they would say, who are you? And I'd say, Lee Dahlberg, rock band. They'd see me and think I was in a rock band. And I understood that they got the misconception. And so I didn't ever correct them. So I never, but I never really corrected anybody. And then in my jacket, I would have my product, and I would bump into celebrity after celebrity. And if I liked them and I liked their vibe, I would offer them a piece of my jewelry explaining the stone, the healing properties. And it was very organic because I never begged, never paid, and never asked anyone to wear my product. They all wanted to. Wow. And then I had a tradition because I lived in London and I used to be in the magazine world. And there's a magazine called ID Magazine. And on the cover, everybody's winking. And so they stole a common symbol and made it theirs. Everyone in England knows, everyone in Europe knows that ID Magazine, the wink. So my joke was, I used to put them on my friend. I've been a model for 20 years. That's how I got them going. And so I used to put them on friends that were doing really high-end fashion shows for very famous designers. And I would sneak backstage. Sometimes I would be in the show and I would put them on everybody in my show without asking. I was terrible. And when they would come down the runway, I'd have friends in the audience taking big pictures and being like, wow, his stuff was on Patricia Field's runway show. Yes, it was, but it was sort of like under the gun, right? And I couldn't always see the bracelet. So one day I told a girl, well, when you get to the end, just do the rock on sign.
Oh my God.
You have to show some audience some vigor. So just, do that. Yeah. She did. And she's like a beautiful girl in a bikini. And she's like this. And the audience loved it. And then I thought, oh, that's my ID Magazine moment. I'm going to steal this symbol, which is like rock on. So my joke was when I put one on a celebrity, now that you have a rock band on, I want to see your inner rock star. So every photo of every celebrity, they're genuinely happy because they're like, making fun. It's a fun little thing. It's not, can you please take a photo with my thing, needy, which is what was true. Yeah. But for some reason, I came off because I had the Jesus hair. I'm giving away magic rocks. So nobody remembered my name, but they would point at me and go, the Jesus guy, the magic rock guy, band guy. And so I lived like that through all these celebrity endorsements, and it just one after the other. And that's how I got going in the world of retail.
That's awesome. So let's take it back to the tank. You're walking down what we call on this show Shark Tank Alley, and you're walking into the tank. You said you've been a model. We know that you've not necessarily high on your resume would be a businessman or entrepreneur at this point, right? So take us through. We don't want to get into numbers, and we just want your overall assessment of how you did, how they did, your experience. Tell us a little summary about what was like being in the tank with those sharks.
No, for sure. It's exactly what you see. You're sequestered in a, kind of these little makeshift closets that are all blacked out, basically. So you're in these things. And I was actually back there with Robin. We were laughing and joking about things because nobody knew he was there. Only the director knew. And I had written Robin a little speech. And I love Robin, but I've never seen him act or memorize. I figured he was a teleprompter guy his whole life. So I'm a bit more nervous about Robin nailing his lines that I wrote him than I was about my pitch, because my pitch was just me. It was true. So, and by the way, the day before you do the pitch to a room full of lawyers on laptops that give you nothing. They don't even look up from their laptop. The energy in the room is like negative. So I went in, they had switched my props, and I went to get something and it was the wrong thing and it threw me. And then my whole pitch went south and it was awful. And so I'm sequestered in a hotel. I walk across the street to like some shopping center and I found like a barber place. And I was like, I'm Southern. And I know that a good old family black barbershop was going to be the best place to get advice in my whole life. Right. So I walk in and I said, can you trim my beard a little? And then I knew if I got him talking, I said, hey, I've got this big thing tomorrow. I'm not really supposed to talk about it, but without saying exact details. And he's like, man, you just got to go in and you got to tell them what you want, but tell them double what you want. So when they get it for half price, you still win. And he didn't even know what he's telling me, right? He just thinks that I got a job interview or I'm selling a used car. Right. He doesn't know, right? So I literally rewrote my whole pitch that night. And by the way, at the hotel bar, you could see a bunch of people nervous at the bar. You could tell they're all there for the same thing because they shoot, 15 shows in one day kind of thing.
Yep.
So, and I wasn't supposed to, but I talked to a few people about things and we did generalities, but I swear the barbershop was the best advice. So I went out, you walk down the hallway, the doors open, and it's true. It's the first time I'd seen them. And I heard that you would know better because you've interviewed quite a few. I was there for what at the time they said was the longest anybody'd stood in front of them.
Wow.
So I did my 4-minute pitch and then I leaned back on the door that I'd walked through and I said, my jewelry is very popular in the world of celebrity, but you don't have to take my word for it. And the doors open, and then Robin's like, "That's right, Sharks. RockBands by Lee Dahlberg are the hottest thing to hit Hollywood since Champagne. They're on the wrists of Bono, Johnny Depp, Jack Nicholson, the Pitch, the Beckhams, and me." Oh, he said President Bill Clinton. Yeah. "And me, Robin Leach. So if you want champagne wishes and caviar dreams, I suggest you do business with the boy." By the way, that's the first time I've re-said that since 10 years ago or whatever.
Wow.
It was verbatim. And so they freaked out. And I'll tell you some inside stuff. It's the first time they cut because they freaked out so hard that they were freaking out, like literally freaking out. And one of them stood up and was like, "Are you an impersonator?" And the director's like, whoa, wait, sit back down. Like you can't, no, we need that one. We need that last sentence over again. And that's the only thing we did for TV. Everything else was straight as it happened. But here's the deal. I was in front of them for an hour and 45 minutes.
That's the longest I've heard.
Down to 9 minutes, I think.
Yeah. That's the longest I've heard.
Yeah, there were some things that they cut out because I know they love to dramatically go after me when they were like upset with my numbers.
Yep.
Because I said I'd made like $530,000 in 6 years. And they're like, 6 years. I don't know anybody that has a part-time job that makes $75,000 a year, especially when they are idiots and they don't know what they're doing and they're having fun as hell and they look like magic Jesus. Like, right. I didn't know. I was totally happy with those numbers. And I understand that's the name of the game and they're trying to get you or whatever. So I used to do stand-up comedy. So I know to take an insult with a grain of salt and just kind of highlight it back to them with a little humor on it. I never stood there and got angry because I can make better fun of me than they ever will. Right. So that's what I did. They took out some of the things. I said, I've been to the future of my company. I've got the DeLorean parked outside. I know what's going to happen. All you have to do is get in. And they took all that out. I was like, man, that was a pretty good analogy because I understood. I got the Neiman's and the Saks and the Bloomingdale's all because I was a model and I did it all cheating. I had every manager of every Neiman Marcus in the country call Dallas and say, we need this product. And so when I called Dallas, they were like, who the hell are you? Like, why are these people? It's because I was a model walking around in circles in the stores for 20 years. So I was cheating and pulling all my stops. And I knew if I got a Neiman's, I could angle that to any other, because at the time when it was open, it was the pinnacle of that tier of retail in America. Yeah. And I could use that. And I went to Saks and I said, hey, I'm in Neiman's. And they said, oh, we prefer, and then I went to Macy's, which is Federated, which was Bloomingdale's and Macy's itself. And it was awful. Not Shark Tank, but the just retail world for a novice.
Yeah, I got it. So you end up with a deal with Mark Cuban and Damon John.
Yes.
They invested $100,000 for 40% share of the business.
Yes.
Tell us post-tank, what happens with due diligence and what happened with the deal with those guys?
Sure. What they don't tell you or people don't know is, I don't know who's told you on the show, they give you a booklet. We called it The Book. And it's literally the taxes from my first lemonade stand at 8 years old all the way to today. It's a colonoscopy. It's like any account of chest hairs. Like it's so thorough. It was 1,100 pages of due diligence. Wow. So it cost me a fortune for my accountants and my lawyers to finish this book, right? So we finished the book and we're like, wow, sweet. Because my company was rare. I had zero debt. I owned most of my manufacturing. My manufacturing numbers were great due to that. I had a direct line overseas. I already had vending license with Neiman's, Saks, Bloomingdale's, Macy's, Ritz-Carlton, Fred Siegel, like all these, fancy places that people would die for.
Yep.
And the zero debt thing was like huge for me because, I just don't, that's how I believe.
Well, they love that too, right?
I had inventory because Neiman's had canceled an order, which was suing worthy, but I didn't sue them. That's what I said on the show, like Macy's did the same to me. And I just, that's why Shark Tank to me was an exit strategy. I love my idea. This is my favorite idea, but I have other ideas and I'm an artist. So I want to move forward. And this thing was beating me up. It was like the child that needed to go to private school, and Mark Cuban was the private school. And I was like, then they could discipline him. Nobody's going to get past this guy. I didn't expect him to be cell phoning me all the time.
Right.
But I want Cuban Enterprise is okay. No, so that's how that began. Okay, so after the show aired, about 3 weeks later, I get a conference call from both their lawyers. And I'll remember that Damon's lawyer was in LA, and it was a woman called Stacy. And Mark's lawyer was a fella in Dallas. And I couldn't remember his name, so I just kept calling him Texas on the phone. And I could hear by their tone that they're getting ready to break up with me. And so I said this. I said, is what you're doing ethical? And they both got quiet. And I said, and one the fella spikes up and he says, we'll read your contract. We can do what we like. I said, well, I read all 52 pages, including the page 2, where it says you'll sue me for $5 million if I say anything bad about the thing. So I know the scare tactic. And it's an adhesive contract because change anything. There's no way around it. It's just going to stick to me. I did drop out of law school, but I remember that part. And I said, but what I asked you is not if it's legal. I asked you if it's ethical. And they silent again. And they're like, look, we're just not going to go through with the deal. I was like, don't you have fiduciary responsibility to tell me why? And they were like, well, it just isn't the deal. Really? Is it because the company has zero debt? It's silence. And I was like, is it because I have all the vending licenses? Is it because that they were going to put me with a jewelry company that they've already acquired? So they already have they already have the distribution, everything. Is that why? No. Is it because I own all the trademarks that we were going to license? No. I was like, oh, okay. And then I started to get bitter, which I do as an artist. You think a woman scorned is bad? How about a starving artist? So I could tell that they're just backing off the phone. So I said, well, how about a piece of advice? Since I've got two of the air quote brightest lawyer minds of two of the air quote brightest business minds, any advice? The fella said, maybe just sell what you have and do something different. Okay, quit. Thank you for that. That's lovely. And then the Stacy lady couldn't get a word out because she was just flustered as hell and wanted to get the hell off the phone. So I immediately did some researching, and I got both the cell phone number of Damon John, women are amazing creatures, and of Mark Cuban. And I called them both once, and I said the same thing. I said, I will never bother you again. This is Lee from Shark Tank with RockBands. I just got broken up with by your lawyers, but I need to hear it from the horse's mouth because that's who I am. You shook my hand. I didn't shake your lawyer's hand. And you did it in front of 7 million people, which is a gentleman's agreement. And where I come from, that means and everything. And I said to Mark Cuban, and by the way, I know you came from nothing too. You sold the biggest lemon in the world, and I'm not mad at you for it, but you came from nothing and I came from nothing. And I thought you'd respect the hustle. So just tell me honestly, what's the deal? And he was nice, but he was dismissive and wanted to get the hell off the phone. And I told him I'd never call him again or whatever. And then Damon was funny because he actually said the words, oh, I forgot about our licensing part of the deal. And I was like, it's illegal for you to admit that you forgot about it because that shows that you didn't have your end of the bargain. I don't even know what to say, man. And so he goes, oh, well, write me on Monday and I'll get back to you. How do you think that went? And then because I gave Kevin and Barbara the negative on the show, I immediately called Barbara's people, and she never got back to me. Then I called Kevin's people, and this is hilarious. Kevin's assistant or whatever the hell that
Alex.
called me said exactly this. Kevin's feelings are hurt that you didn't choose him on the show, so he doesn't want to move forward with you. And I said, oh, so your deal was bullshit also, because he's Mr. Nobody cries in baseball. There's no crying in business. There's no emotion, whatever. So that's a bogus answer just to get me off the phone. So was your deal also just for television? And they promptly said, very nice talking to you, yada, yada, goodbye. So, later I actually saw, what's the Canadian guy that's so nice? He tried to get a deal.
Robert Hirschbeck. Yep.
He and Damon were walking down Miami in the middle of this open air mall called Lincoln Road. And I saw them and I thought, oh boy, I was on a date. And I said, I'm sorry, I will be right back. I see two old friends. And so I walked in front of them and I'm walking backwards as they're walking. I said, hey guys. And they were like, hi. And I go, recognize anybody? And they were like, oh, Damon turned white. And I said, look, I'm not going to bother you, but I'm just telling you, you missed an opportunity. I mean, we even talked about just licensing the names and maybe not moving forward with the jewelry company.
Yep.
And you told me to write you again, and I did, and I got nothing back. And he goes, oh, write my office, backpedaling, whatever. I did that on purpose to make them squirm. Just a little pee is a little bit made me feel better, messed up his chinos. Half hour later with this humidity, it's dry. No harm, no foul, but it is what it is. I mean, would I do it again? Yes. Would I do it again as naive as I did? No. I'm an actor for 32 years, and I didn't think I was going on the Jersey Shore where it was like not what I see. It's not, and I'm not saying the show's not real. That's not true. But the amount of people that they help, because I drew a lawsuit against them. And I think I'm the first person to ever do that. And it wasn't because I wanted money. It's because I don't like the idea of artists being taken advantage of in their most weakened and vulnerable state. And then they get you to say the numbers of your manufacturing, and you're quite weak. Here's one more thing, and it's so petty, but that's me. So here we go. When I'm backstage after I made the deal, right? We're back to there. I'm having a drink with Robin Leach, because you would, and we're laughing, and we're stuck in this room. And one of the PAs comes in and says, we know that you gave each of them a band that you designed for them on the show, but they're interested in more. Now, I just made what I think is a multi-million-dollar deal with $100,000 up front. So I'm like, oh, let them go, whatever they like. Now I'm not out there. So later, $3,200 worth of my jewelry is gone, which at the time, who cares, right? I'm about to make millions, right? I was on Donnie Deutsch, The Big Idea, years before. You're going to make millions. Okay, sure. And then, which is like the preamble to Shark Tank anyway. But so there, it was just like one of those petty things. Another thing, they wouldn't fly Robin out, and they wouldn't even pick him up from the airport. Oh. And I was laughing so hard. And Robin is so chill, was so chill, God bless him. He gave me his senior discount number to book his flight, and he insisted on Southwest. God bless him. But I did send a limo because he had hurt his shoulder, and I wanted the guy to carry his luggage. But isn't it funny? I'm bringing complete value to their show, and I own an ad agency, and I would never be so petty as my little tiny ad agency in the world. And ABC. So when they told me this on the phone, I said, will the lights be on during the airing? And I'm talking on speakerphone to a boardroom, and they were like, well, yes, of course. I said, well, are you guys okay? Or do you need some money for the electricity? Or are you good? And they understood where I was going, like making fun of how petty they were. It was just looking back, it's not the best thing if they knew the deal was fake to be taking jewelry from a guy that they just fooled, and I don't know that any of my paperwork, zero debt, all profits, huge margins, all the vending numbers, all the advertising in the world. I don't know what part of that threw them off. So I'm going to guess that they already had decided that they're not going to go through with the deal that day. So that's the part that I'm like, well, guys, that's a little bit tacky. Like, did I have fun? Yes. Would I do it again? Yes. I would have. I don't think I would have changed anything. I would have hoped that they changed the edits, but making me look so. But that's fine. That's the name of the game.
So let me ask you this: two final questions because we're coming up on time. I want to ask you one about the shark, what they call the Shark Tank effect. So you find out you're airing, and then your show airs. Does your website get hit, or the orders call in, or other people trying to invest? Tell us your experience when you finally aired.
Yes, this is where I lose all my sympathy with your audience, because you have to understand, I was doing all of this from my living room part-time when I had a full-time career, 2 careers, 3 careers, really. So the effort put in I wasn't killing myself. I would work, then come home and fulfill orders till like 3 a.m. and then mail them myself. I didn't even hire an intern. I was stupid.
Jeez.
I did very well for the next 6 months. I made like $250,000,
wow.
Which isn't, but now it wasn't all for me.
No,
it was
get it though.
All my company and whatever, and I had put a lot of money into protecting my trademark, to research and development, to everything, because I went on, I made Roadies, which is a bracelet that supports a rock band. So Roadie comes in a guitar case because a rock band comes in and then I made what hangs out with the roadies in the rock bands. Groupies is a necklace set. So I did necklaces. And then eventually I did a smaller chain, which comes in a little leather bag, and they're like stretch, and then they can, they're kind of unisex. Nice. And they come with the meaning of the stone. So it does all the same feel. And then I did like a rock chain wallet. So again, still with the feel, but something. And then I had a whole clothing line. So I went a little wild on the expanse of what I was offering. And in retrospect, I wish I just had 10 styles. But it was a great learning experience. I have no regrets about the show. I'm Southern though. You shake my hand, you say something to my eye, respect me, that's all. But it's the world, and it's Hollywood, and it's, we understand.
Where can the listeners and viewers find the product today? Where should they go to look up RockBands?
Coincidentally, I just redid my website 2 days ago. Lee Dahlberg, it's LeeDahlberg.com, and it links to everything I do: furniture, art, jewelry, acting, modeling. You don't want to hire me for that. I'm a terrible actor. But also, I have a furniture company called You Son of a Bench, YOU Son of a Bench, and that's on Instagram. And then I have, because I was getting convoluted with music, I have leather rock bands on Instagram, and Lee Arthur Dahlberg on Instagram. I know that seems lazy, but everything is through Instagram these days, and it's that way you can see updates every day of everything I do. The website gets changed, once a month, but every day live, and all of those go to me and my sea of interns, which is my fat dog that's sitting on the floor. So literally it'll be me answering and me dealing with everything. Oh, he hurt me.
Well, listen, we wish you the best of success. We appreciate you sharing the journey with us. Obviously, you're not a busy guy because you got 5,000 things going on with your modeling and acting and all the businesses and all that stuff. I would suggest you guys out there get to LeeDahlberg.com. Remember, it's LeeDahlberg and .com. Christmas time's coming. And what a better place. I mean, you can get me one. Send it to me. I'd love to have one of those. Thanks, Lee. Appreciate your time today.
No, very great talking to you. Thanks for listening to me ramble.
We'll be back with more What Would You Ask podcast in a second.